Well, first, it's great to be on your inaugural Sunday show.
Thank you so
Proud to be
much,
your
sir.
president. I think, look, the president's trying to negotiate, just like Maduro. The Iranians are very deceptive. They're not good faith negotiators. I believe in his mind, he knew at the end of the day he couldn't trust them. And he went to plan B. This was what was interesting to me is the targets. It was no longer about eviscerating the nuclear sites, but rather going into regime change. I mean, to see the compound of the Ayatollah just completely blown up. And we know that not only was he taken out, but his top advisors and the IRGC. This was a significant event. And I don't want to diminish the sort of greatness of this moment. Since 1979, there's been a dark veil that descended across the Middle East. And that shroud has now been lifted. And the people of Iran now have a chance for freedom and a chance to take back their country. And since 1979, we've seen what Iran has done as the largest state sponsor of terror. They've had their proxies. And it's not just Israel. Everybody talks all about Israel. They also send drones to kill Ukrainians. They also fuel China's imperial war machine. And, what's interesting, lastly, Christina, is, the typical allies here, they have completely turned off the Gulf states from them. I mean, with this miscalculation of hitting not only our military bases, but hotels in the Gulf states surrounding Iran, they are now aligned with the United States and Israel against Iran. And where is China and Russia? They're nowhere to be found. So I understand, veteran standpoint, Iraq, Afghanistan, I understand all that. The difference is Iran is all alone now, and there's no one there to save them. And their leadership is completely decapitated, such that there is no serious governance that can take place. I do think it's time for the people to rise up. I think the big question for me is, what do we have in place to help these people rise up? What is Israel doing?
Let me go there if I could, because that's my question of the morning, which is the government may be out. You have this vacuum. How does the U.S. encourage that to happen here without boots on the ground, which I think, dare I say, you and others in the Congress are probably reluctant to have be the case going forward here. How does the U.S. and Israel encourage the growth of a new administration, new government in Iran, barring that?
That's a great question. I think it is the question of the hour. I think what got us in trouble in Iraq, if I can go back to Iraq and Afghanistan, we had a chance to kill bin Laden early on and we missed him. Here we did. We killed the Ayatollah. He is gone. Our presence there evoked the jihadists. So it was our boots on the ground in Iraq and Afghanistan that drew like a magnet the jihadists to us. We're not going to see that in this case. And I have to think that Israel is probably the one in the best position to effectuate, help with not only communications, but weapons and leadership. And those are the three elements I talk about a lot. I don't know who the next leader of Iran is going to be. I don't see weapons right now, but that's possible. And the communications, we got to get Starlink in there. I know they were trying to, but Iran was taking out those terminals. I think that's going to be a big change when Starlink gets back up and they can communicate amongst themselves. Now, I remember the last strike in the 10-day or the 10-day war, whatever it was, that I was surprised at what the presence of the assets Israel had on the ground in Iran to take out these targets. Yeah. And I think everyone in the intelligence community was equally surprised by the presence they had. So I do think Israel is probably in the better position. If it does need boots on the ground, certainly Israel's better. I don't see this president putting American boots on the ground.
Congressman, I want to ask you, there's been some reporting that members of Congress are going to be getting some briefings maybe as soon as today or tomorrow. I'm wondering if there's anything you can say about that, what briefings or information you've received from the White House so far. And then I also want to ask you about this war powers resolution that some of your colleagues are trying to send to the floor and whether or not you'll support it.
Sure. So a couple of things. War Powers Act has been invoked. This was a military, the use of our military in a foreign land in a strike situation. So that prong has been fulfilled. Therefore, within 48 hours, a notification has to come to the Congress, notifying us of the circumstances, the legal justification, and the extent and duration of the conflict. If the conflict exceeds 60 days, it needs authorization from Congress. Now, Congress can do that prior. Typically, it has not in the past. We do have briefings scheduled this week that will be classified briefings in what's called the SCIF. That's a classified briefing space.
What information will you be looking for in those briefings? What questions do you have for the administration?
I think for me, next steps. Look, this was once again, like Venezuela, a masterful military executed plan, flawless. No Americans were killed. What I'm looking for is what's the overall objective moving forward. It's clearly not just taking out military sites now. It's about regime change. And I would like to know what objectives are at hand and what are the next steps in place and how long will all involvement take place. If I can say, as chairman of Foreign Affairs Committee, I was trying to update these old AUMFs from the 2001